Thanks everyone again for joining us today. We are Eco El Paso, and we are a local nonprofit, an all volunteer nonprofit focused on sustainability in our region. And so, as a part of National Drive Electric Week, we are a local nonprofit that hosts events each year. And so, we are really, wanting to get out there to educate the public on electric vehicles, the myths, break down all the basic barriers, especially when it comes to the dollars when it comes to investing in an EV. And we really just want to educate the public and expand awareness, and hopefully in the long term expand adoption of electric vehicles in our region. And so each day this week we've had a speaker, part of our series, and today we've got Tony Reyes. He is a local El Pasoan, and he drives an electric vehicle. And I really just wanted to get his perspective today because I think he's worked with multiple types of vehicles. He's been in the solar industry, the utility industry, and he really sort of knows, the details of electric vehicles, and wanted him to really share his experience today. And so, Tony, I'll let you, introduce yourself and take it from here.
Thank you, Shelby. So, Shelby mentioned, my name is Tony Reyes. I was born and raised here in El Paso, Texas. I did go away to college. I got a mechanical engineering degree, and then I started working in the auto industry for General Motors in Michigan. I was in Michigan for a year, and then the Delphi Automotive part of GM was split off from GM, and I had the option of staying with GM in Michigan or moving back into the area working for Delphi Automotive. So all my family and friends were here. My wife's family was here, so I decided to go with Delphi and come back down. So, and then after being with Delphi and General Motors for about 13 years, I left along with several other engineers and started a solar energy company here in El Paso, Texas. Solar Smart Living was the company that I helped start. I was there for about 5 years, and then I took a position with El Paso Electric, working on solar energy projects and electric vehicles. And just a disclaimer, anything I say today, I'm representing myself, not El Paso Electric. So this is all Tony speaking, and nobody else. And so interestingly at Delphi, the last project I worked on was actually the Chevy Volt interior controls. My engineering group that I was managing, we did all the interior controls for the Chevy Volt, which we actually didn't like the way the controls came out, but we had no choice because we were working for GM. And we had to do, what their requirements, their specs, what they wanted. We kept trying to give them suggestions about some of the things. But I guess the biggest thing people complain about in the Chevy Volt is the capacitive touch controls. But I'll show you guys those in a bit. So my first experience with an electrified vehicle of any sort was Toyota Prius, a second generation Toyota Prius, which we bought used for about $9,000, I think, and. We ran that thing into the ground. We put a lot of miles on it.
I've seen a lot of those on the road.
Yeah, it was a great vehicle. I did have to swap out the hybrid battery on it, which I kind of followed a YouTube video, did it myself. But
wow.
It's something that I have an automotive and engineering background, so maybe it's not something anybody would want to tackle. But it's not too bad. The battery is actually pretty compact and lightweight in the Prius. And it's only about $1,000 to replace it, between $1,000 and $1,300 you can get a replacement Prius battery. You can even get them at like O'Reilly's or AutoZone, local auto parts
really?
stores. Wow. And if you do the math, like nice. Those replacement batteries have a 3-year warranty, and the fuel savings compared to a regular car after just 1 year basically pays for the battery. So people are scared of battery costs, but they've come way down. Like the Prius when it first came out, it had a $12,000 battery, but now it's $1,000. The Chevy Volt had a $40,000 battery. Now it's a $4,000 battery, just as things have come down in price. So then nice. after the Prius, I was really a Toyota Honda guy. I was a Japanese vehicle guy. I wanted to do, reliability was my big concern. But the Japanese are really behind on plugins in a lot of ways. And so the Nissan Leaf was available in 2011, but the range was limited.
Yeah.
I really wanted one vehicle that could replace, all the functions that I needed. So I ended up getting a Chevy Volt. Let me flip the camera here and I'll show you guys my Chevy Volt. So this is a 2011 Chevy Volt. which I bought used in 2014, I believe, March of 2014. And I had been looking for a Chevy Volt locally for months, and the local dealers didn't have any. They said, well, we might have one coming in, but it's already sold, and the customer picks it up as soon as it comes off the truck. So I was not able to see one locally, and I ended up having to go all the way to California to buy this vehicle and drive it back. And that's one of the cool things about the Chevy Volt, that when you're in the city with the 40-mile range that it has, 35 to 40-mile range, you can pretty much do all your daily commuting, for months without going to gasoline. But then if you need to do a long trip, it just operates like a gasoline hybrid vehicle. So yeah, we drove it all the way down from Northern California, actually, stopped in Las Vegas. And in Vegas, most hotels have free EV charging. It was really cool. So we were able to be in Vegas for a couple of days and just be on electric there.
Free gas.
And then again,
yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, basically what it was.
And so the 4-cylinder in there, how big is the gas tank in like the average Volt, or maybe yours?
It's actually pretty small. It's I think it's just over 8 gallons.
8 gallons? Okay.
Yeah, but because it's such a fuel efficient system and vehicle, you still have like a 350-mile range on the gasoline element of it. So it's very efficient on gasoline because it operates almost like a Prius as far as efficiency. So
like
you don't need a big
gallon.
tank.
Oh, okay, cool. I think that's what people want to know, right? Is okay, I get the first 40, maybe 35 on a bad day. And then after that, I know I can still get another 40 miles a gallon for 350 miles. So that I think that's super important. And most people don't always think about these hybrid systems.
Yeah, so on this vehicle, we spend months commuting before we even think about a gasoline station.
Nice.
And because everything runs so little on this vehicle, if you look at it's got 106,000 miles on it, but when you look at all the plastics and rubber hoses and connectors and cables, it looks like it's brand new because it never gets heated. It doesn't go through these crazy heat cycles, which are what degrade a lot of plastics and rubbers. A lot of the components just don't wear out as much because it does have a big electrified element to it that allows you to run on electric most of the time. The brake pads, at 106,000 miles, I've inspected the brake pads and they look like they're brand new. The discs look like they're brand new because most of the braking is done, through regen braking, where as you're slowing down, you're recovering energy, putting it back into the battery.
Oh yeah, that's nice. So they're gonna last twice as long as normal.
Or pretty much the life of the vehicle. Like
Wow.
I think they're expected to last the life of the vehicle because they're used so little. About 80% of your braking is done through the electric motors.
Wow.
Only like in a panic stop do you really use the mechanical brakes, which is pretty rare. So they could have actually gone with a much simpler or thinner brake pad maybe, but they didn't. They kept it robust. So this vehicle in 2011, when I bought it, this vehicle new was over $40,000, which that was too much money for me. I was looking for a used vehicle, and I bought this one off lease for about $20,000 with 30,000 miles on it, and so I've gone from 30,000 to 106,000 on it, and now you can find Gen 1 Volts like this one in good shape, with still a good battery for like $6,000 to $10,000, somewhere in that range. So under 10,000, it's very easy to find these Gen 1 Volts. And
wow, that's a super important point, especially if that's even like first car territory for if you
exactly,
or if it's your first vehicle. That's amazing.
So this speaking of first car, this vehicle is the car my kids share. So my 3 kids share this car for their school and local errands and stuff that they do. And their first car was a plug-in vehicle. This is all they know. We also had a Spark EV, which is a really fun vehicle, which I traded in for another electric vehicle that I'll talk about later. So this car is their first car, and all of them say, when they get into a gasoline vehicle, it just feels weird and broken. What's this vibration and noise and smell? What's all this mess that we're having to deal with in a gasoline car? So they've all said, there's no way we'd ever buy something that's not a plug-in vehicle after experiencing this one as our first car and seeing the difference. So the Chevy Volt is, you can tell it's a Gen 1 EV or plug-in vehicle because it's only a 4-seater. So the battery technology at this point was not as compact. So you had like a T-shaped battery that goes underneath the 2 rear seats and down the middle.
Oh, okay.
And so that takes up the space, in the center. The second generation Volt, they did manage to add a fifth seat in the center,
Nice.
but it's very rare that you have five passengers in a vehicle. So this has worked fine for me as our first plug-in and my kids. And these are the controls that I mentioned that my Delphi engineering group worked on. So all of these controls for the stereo system, they're capacitive touch. So there's no physical button. You just kind of like your phone.
Oh, nice. I like that. Okay. Cool.
So some people like it, but some people kind of want the feedback of actually clicking something.
Mhm.
So that was one complaint that people had about it. But I mean, I like it. It feels like you're driving this cool futuristic space vehicle.
Yeah, and back then that was like insanely new technology, or at least it felt like it. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
wow.
So and this is this is
So it's
this
sort
is
of
a
like a
trunk. So
hatchback almost.
it is exactly a hatchback. Yeah.
Okay.
So it does have good cargo space. Most modern vehicles don't come with a spare, so I did buy a spare for it. You can find spares for them. It has a compressor and sealant kit, but I liked having a physical spare. So this is a spare from a specific Cadillac model that fits the exact bolt pattern on the Chevy Volt.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool.
So yeah, so that's
That's
that.
a
This was our
fancy car
first
version.
first plug-in. What's that?
You said that's a 2011 version?
2011. Yes.
Wow, the seats look good, the door panels, the dash. I mean, it's still that
Yeah.
looks more like a 20-year car instead of your typical 10-year car, which I think a lot of people car for 5, 10 years.
Yeah. General Motors actually spent a lot of money and resources making this a vehicle with quality materials and good engineering, because it was kind of their first modern plug-in, and they really wanted
Sure.
it to be reliable. And this the first couple of years this vehicle came out, Consumer Reports and other agencies that look at reliability found that this was General Motors' most reliable vehicle of all types.
Oh, wow.
And for me, we've
Great.
put 80,000 miles on it pretty much, and this really has been one of the most reliable vehicles I've owned, even compared to Hondas and Toyotas. The only thing I've had to do out of warranty on this vehicle was replace a coolant valve for one of the systems on it, and it was a $69 part.
Sure.
Uh,
And it sounds like you
so
probably know how to do that and did it yourself, huh?
yeah, well, the dealer was doing some software updates while I was there,
Oh,
I
okay.
had him do it. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
because I spend
That's what
so
I would
little
do.
on yeah. I mean, I spend so little on maintenance for this vehicle, and I have to do so many, so few things myself that, like for example, the oil changes on this vehicle, you do it like once every 2 years. So, I've had this
Sure.
vehicle since 2014, and I've done 3 oil changes on it the
Gosh,
whole
and most
time.
people probably do 2 a year, maybe three at the most on average. And those are 50 to $100 each.
Yeah,
So you're doing it, that's like 80, 90% savings. And
yeah,
again, it seems like every time you mention a part, it's like, oh, this is 90% savings compared to a regular car. The
yeah.
brakes are 90, 98% longer lifespan. So it sounds like everything you keep mentioning, they seem like long-term products, whereas most ICE cars, something breaks every year, I feel like.
Yeah, exactly. And the electric motors on EVs, they're really designed to last, a million miles, half a million miles, a million miles, because they have no uh, moving parts in contact that are wearing out. There are all these brushless motors that don't wear out. So, and then a lot of people, have a concern about, buying a used EV, but when you do the math, even if you have to get a loan for the full amount of a $6,000, $7,000 EV, the fuel savings basically pay for your monthly payment. So you have a free car. So there's absolutely no reason not to get a used plug-in vehicle that's under $10,000, because it's a free
Wow,
car. You're basically paying it with your fuel bill.
man.
Uh,
I think that's like an extremely important point that I think that anyone listening to this video takes away. The car pays for itself. And I think that's what people need to realize, right? It's the savings in the gas and in the parts that don't wear out as often or at all. It's the essentially you have a gas station at your house, and every home in America is now a gas station. So how could you really ever run
yeah.
out of power if you have an extension cord? Um,
So speaking about the gas station, this is my gas station for the Volt, right? This is just a 120-volt outlet. It's just a standard household outlet.
okay.
And this charging station it's free. It came with the vehicle. So I already had an outdoor rated outlet. I had the free charging station it comes with, and that's all that you need for a vehicle like the Volt, because it has a smaller battery. For 40, 50, 60 miles a day that you're using it, 120 volts is fine, and especially because this one has the gasoline backup, so it's not as much of a concern. So I didn't have to pay anything for setting up the charging station for the Volt here.
And did you get one of those EV rate meters at your home, or is that not required?
No, well, I have a solar system that I'll talk about a little bit later. So
Okay.
my solar system produces enough electricity to offset my home's fuel electric bill, and also my 3 plug-in vehicles. So it doesn't make sense for me to worry about the rate or go through that cost to switch over. But if anybody has 2 plug-in vehicles in their home, and they don't have a solar system, then going on that rate makes a lot of sense. It pays for itself. The added cost for the extra meter and to do any kind of electrical work on your home pays back in very quickly if you have 2 plug-in vehicles, I would say.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And I think you'll probably see that. A friend of ours was on the other day, and both he and his wife had an electric vehicle. I think they both have Teslas now, and they have a nice vehicle. It sounds like they rarely use it, and it's always broken. But yeah, it sounds like that kind of family will probably start being more common in the long run.
Yeah. So after the Chevy Volt, we did have a Spark. I had a Spark EV that I was driving for a while, which I traded in for my Tesla later. But this is the vehicle that we purchased for my wife. It's a Ford C-Max Energy. The Ford Fusion Energy is a sedan. This is more like a crossover vehicle. It's a little bit taller. And the reason we purchased this vehicle as a plug-in vehicle is that at that point when we purchased this vehicle, we still had 5 people in the household. So we needed a 5-seater, for weekend trips, and this vehicle is a 5-seater. Actually, I'll open it from the other side, but it's also a hatchback. So.
Okay.
But it actually has less cargo room than the Chevy Volt, because as you can see, there's a raised load floor here, and that's where the battery is located. So the C-Max was a gasoline vehicle that Ford made it hybrid and plug-in, but they basically had to find a place for the battery that the chassis was not designed for.
Sure. Okay. And this is a combo EV and gasoline?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. This one has a 20-mile range, so it's less than the Volt. It's got a smaller range, a smaller battery pack. As you saw, the whole battery pack is in the trunk basically, as opposed to being under the floor like the Chevy Volt. But again, for this vehicle, all I need is a 120-volt plug. I got the free charger there from Ford, and it's just plugged into a 120-volt outlet in the ceiling. And I have the cord here. And I do have a holster for the charger here when we leave, but that's all that's needed again. So again, I didn't have to do any work because all EVs come with their own charger.
And how big of a tank does that car have on it?
How big of a what?
Of a gas tank? Is it like a 20?
This one has a bigger gas tank. It's I think it's like 13, 14 gallons. So this one has a pretty long range. Like you can do 400 miles, 500 miles on gasoline, depending on what efficiency you get. So it has a bigger gas tank, a little bit lower efficiency, but it still has a longer range than the Volt overall.
Sure.
So yeah, you could drive this anywhere, just like the Volt. But yeah, as you can see, this is a 5-seater. Gotcha. So it does have, it's a taller vehicle too. It has more space. The controls on it are more conventional. If it looks more like a modern car with a just more standard controls, touch buttons, and a couple of screens. But again, this one has been also very reliable. I was scared of buying Ford and Chevys based on past experience, but they've been great. I haven't had any issues with them. And again, same thing. Because the gasoline runs less. So the components last longer, the rubbers, the plastic, everything else. And then my most recent purchase is the vehicle that I've been driving is the Tesla Model 3, which, I mean, there's millions of videos on YouTube about it. I'm not going to go through any of the functions or operations of the vehicle because there's very, very well done videos all over the place on the car. But
Sure.
you can tell this is a very purposefully designed EV, right? Because when you look inside, the floor, there's no battery coming up off the floor anywhere. It's got tons of leg room and space everywhere.
Sure.
Yeah. And it has a huge trunk in the front and in the rear. There's no compromise, and as Frank mentioned in one of your other sessions, the supercharger network is fully fleshed out throughout the country. I feel like I could drive this vehicle pretty much anywhere on a whim, and the range is long enough and the charging is so fast. The second week I had this vehicle, I knew the capability of the charging and the infrastructure and everything, but I was still kind of wary, right? Because I didn't have personal experience with it. But the second week I had it, we drove to Austin in it.
Oh, wow.
And it was flawless. Like there was never any stress. The range was plentiful. The chargers were all working. They were really fast. I never felt like I was waiting on the car because every couple of hours we would stop to charge and, go into the bathroom, grab something at the convenience store, come out, the car's done.
Wow.
Our longest stop was our lunch stop. What's that?
What's the average layover? That's funny because I'm from Austin, and if I do want to take a road trip to Austin, is it like a 15 to 20 minute stop whenever you charge?
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. 10 to 20 minutes, depending on the stop, and you can use the onboard system to design your routes, or there's also some online tools. A better route planner. A better route planner is probably the best tool for planning your trip in a Tesla, and it's a free app. I mean, you can download it. You can actually just open up a web browser in the car and use a better route planner directly from there.
But what networks on the best way to get to your spot, basically.
Yeah, it'll tell you where to stop and how long, and actually, I could have done the whole trip to Austin with only two stops, but they would have been like longer stops, 40 minutes to an hour. So it's actually much faster to do, more frequent stops, let's say four or five stops, but then they're like 10 to 20 minute stops, and they're like natural bathroom breaks anyway. So, so the charging, worked out fine. But the biggest amazing thing was the autopilot. Like after doing that long trip on autopilot, I would find it very hard to do a long trip in a vehicle that doesn't have it. On the highway where it's designed to be used, it works amazingly well. Like normally on a trip like that, my wife and I are swapping drivers every 2 hours.
Sure.
Because just to refresh yourself and because you're getting tired. But I got off in Austin after driving myself the whole way, feeling like I had just jumped in the car, because you don't realize how much mental resources the autopilot helps replace, basically. And so I felt like I was not tired at all. I mean, the seats are super comfortable in Teslas also. That's another advantage. But
they look really nice. So tell me more about that, because this is something we haven't really gone into any depth in on any of our videos. So when you talk about the autopilot, so I'm a new Tesla owner. I'm going to take your advice. I'm going to drive to Austin. Are your hands still on the wheel? Are your feet at the pedals? How comfortable and how loose do you get compared to normal in a Tesla?
Yeah, I mean, my hand, one of my hands is always on the wheel, because the Tesla is looking for some kind of torque input from the driver, so that it doesn't kick you out of autopilot or start alarming and actually come to a stop. So you always have a hand on the wheel, but you're kind of just resting it there. You don't have to be gripping it or putting any strong input into it, or you're not really controlling the car. You're just resting your hand there, telling the car, hey, I'm still here.
I'm alive and I'm here.
And I'm still paying attention to the road. It's just in a more like an observer. Like I'm kind of supervising the car as opposed to actually driving it. So in case there's like there could be a pothole or a dead animal or something in the road that the car won't pick up because it's a very small object, and you might want to take some corrective action. And I don't have the full self-driving package, so I still have to do lane changes myself. So if there's lane changes required, I would do that. But the nice thing about the autopilot is that it also has adaptive cruise control. So if there's a car in front of you, even though you have it at a set speed, it'll maintain a set distance to the front vehicle. So you don't have to worry about braking if there's a car all of a sudden cutting you off or in front of you that's going slower than you want. You can just let the car handle that situation as well. It's only during lane changes, but yeah, you know, Tesla tells you over and over, and if you read anything on the manual or on the screen, it tells you you got to be paying attention. You know, this is not a fully autonomous system. You know, you keep your hand on the wheel, pay attention, and if you drive it that way, you know, you don't feel scared or stressed, and you don't feel like, you know, you're going to get into an issue. So you have to follow the directions. You know, I work for General Motors, and some of the older engineers, you know, tell these crazy stories about what people would do when cruise control came around.
Yeah.
So, you know, cruise control, you know, decades ago when it started, you know, becoming available, people thought it was a fully autonomous system. They would turn on the cruise control, jump in the back seat, lie down, and then wreck. You know,
Oh my goodness.
because people did not understand what cruise control. And now, you know, we nobody would do that with cruise control, right?
Sure.
So people just need to understand what this system is and what it can do. It is a learning curve, but you know, the National Highway and Traffic Safety Association has millions and millions, probably over 1 billion miles now of Tesla data, and you know, the Tesla vehicles on autopilot are something like 2 to 5 times safer than a human driver on those same routes, those same miles. So it's already, you know, several multiples safer than a human if you use it in its environment and how you're supposed to use it. So it really is an amazing system, and you know, surprisingly, you know, that's even like cooler to me than like the supercharger network, because it makes long trips so easy, and you don't get tired, which is a big safety thing also, and you have more energy for other things.
Yeah, that's actually a
So
really good point. I've actually sort of avoided driving to Austin and San Antonio just because you feel exhausted when you get there. But that in itself might be a really nice feature for those longer trips. Especially
yeah,
if I don't
yeah.
want to do a plane right now, right? I don't want to get my kids, and you know, I've got a young little girl that I don't want to take on a plane right now. So it almost makes it more appealing to have an EV, so I can make those longer trips if I want to still.
And going back to talking about cost, you know, people think Teslas are expensive, right? So they started about $35,000. I think Tesla will still sell you a $35,000 version of this car if you call and do like a phone order. On their website, the lowest cost Model 3 is still under 40,000, but not quite at 35, I think. But yeah, so people think, oh, that's an expensive luxury car. Well, when you look at total cost of ownership, and you know, how much are you actually spending per month on fuel and maintenance, etc., you're really buying, when you buy a $35,000 Model 3, you're buying the equivalent of a Honda Civic or Toyota Corolla. You know, that's the cost of ownership. So you know, it makes no sense, but people don't think of those long-term costs oftentimes because they haven't crunched the numbers. But that's really, you're really buying a Honda Civic or Toyota Corolla when you buy a $35,000 Model 3.
Well, yeah, and it
Um,
seems like now you can get a Model 3 or a Model S used, and it's, you know, you can even get an upgraded one with all the bells and
yeah,
whistles, and it's still, and I've seen them in the 30s and 40s because I started looking for them recently, and it seems like there's an abundance in the 30 to 50 range, and you can get $100,000 car for 30 to 50K, or you know, an 80,000, $60,000 car for 30 to 50K is still really awesome, especially like you said, right? If you can knock off $300-400 a month, and now all of a sudden it's paying for itself. It's sort of like the same pitch that you give to a homeowner when you sell solar, right? Eventually it's going to pay
yeah,
for itself, and at some point you're actually profiting versus living the other lifestyle, right? And I
right.
think that's super important because I mean it's essentially the same reason you buy solar, right? Is to lower your total cost of energy or total cost of ownership, right? So
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then, you know, when you look at the owner's manual in the Chevy Volt, there's still a maintenance schedule. There's still a maintenance schedule in there. You know, you gotta change the
sure.
oil every 2 years, if or there are some coolant systems that there are still spark plugs, belts, hoses, because you have a gasoline, you know,
Yeah.
element. So that those eventually still need to be replaced. So there is a maintenance schedule for plug-in hybrids. And Tesla initially had a maintenance schedule where they were asking for an annual inspection, you know, for the vehicle owner to bring the car in and have it inspected, some of the systems checked out. But Tesla wasn't finding any issues during those inspections, so they got rid of it. Tesla has no maintenance schedule in the vehicle anymore. There's the only thing is like every 10,000 miles, rotate the tires, and that is
Okay.
it. There
Wow.
is no maintenance
That's
schedule
awesome.
on it anymore. It's crazy. It's like, it's ridiculous to think about that. And the motors in Teslas are expected to last about 1,000,000 miles. The design mileage is about 1,000,000 miles on the motors. The batteries, anywhere from 300,000 to 500,000 miles is the expected life of the battery. And by the time you're out of warranty and you're having to think about replacing a battery, they're going to be very cheap, very low cost batteries. Looking at the cost trends of how batteries are going down in price, so it's not really a concern. I mean, because the motors last so long, a Tesla feels like a vehicle that you buy it and that's going to be your last vehicle if you want it to be, because 500,000 miles will take a long time to get to, and once you get there, you can swap out the battery and the rest of the vehicle. If it's lasting 1,000,000 miles, you just keep going, right?
Sure. Yeah,
and
that's really important.
And there are people that have had some of the older Teslas. They've had the battery swapped out, because a lot of miles or under warranty or whatever. And Tesla, comes back and tells them, well, we don't have that exact battery anymore. We have a battery that's produces more power and has more range, and that's what we're going to give you because that's all we have. So people get an upgrade. People get an upgrade with more range when they go get a battery swapped on some of the older Teslas.
Yeah, and that's that you could do in a nice car. But now it seems like the average person can almost swap out the engine, right? You send it back to the dealer, swap it out. Whereas nowadays you don't think about that. You're like, okay, I'm going to take my car in, I'm going to trade it in, and I'm going to get something different. But this seems just more long-term sustainable, especially when you include solar and all the other things.
So when you're talking about charging, right? Now the Tesla, because it does have a big battery pack, can go more miles, and it actually does come with a 240 volt level 2 charger. So Teslas, and I think the new Nissan Leafs also come with a level 2 charger, again free out of the vehicle, but you do need a 240 volt outlet. So this is like a dryer type outlet.
Sure.
When I purchased this home, I was looking for EV charging, infrastructure kind of already built into the house, and a good roof for solar. Those are two criteria that I used, and this house had two 240 volt outlets already built into the garage. It's an old house from the 70s, but I think the previous owner had an electric dryer in the garage, but also maybe a welder or something else that he installed the second outlet for.
Yeah.
So that was super convenient. I didn't have to do any electrical work again. I just bought this little cord as an adapter, because the 240 volt Tesla charger comes with a certain type of plug, but there's a bunch of different 240 volt plugs depending on what year and what standard they used. But you can buy a very low cost little adapter, on eBay to make it work.
Okay, but yeah, I mean, it sounds like as simple as a plug and a possible adapter is all you really need.
Yeah, and then you can see kind of how the technology has changed. So this is the 240 volt charger that I bought used for the Chevy Volt.
Okay.
Which I'm not using right now. It's just hanging here. It's disconnected. But so you can see the size of this charger. With my hand here, it's pretty huge, right?
Yeah.
And then by the time Tesla comes around, it's a little tiny device.
80% smaller. Yeah, it sounds like that's where everything's going. Battery range is going to go up. Cost of batteries is going to keep dropping 30-40% a year. And then it seems like they're trying to drop down to a $25,000 model of a Tesla eventually in the next few years. So it sounds like everything's getting cheaper and cheaper, whereas gas infrastructure is not. So, if the cost of electricity goes down and the cost per mile goes down, it's sort of, almost not financially sound to drive an ICE vehicle.
Like we said, you can have a free one. You can have a free one if you buy a low cost used one.
Yeah, that's a really good. That right there is like the biggest takeaway is it can pay for itself, and no other car can. So.
A lot of people, the different companies that I've worked for, I've always been big on sustainability and recycling and energy efficiency, and so a lot of people would call me the green Gestapo or the green Nazi or whatever. But pretty much every electric vehicle or solar system that I've purchased or installed or has been a financial decision as well. A lot of people think I'm an early adopter, but I'm really not. I follow the industry pretty closely, and there's a point where the cost effectiveness and the technology is mature, that I jump into it. Maybe I'm aware of when that moment happens sooner because I'm in the industry.
Sure.
But I'm really not. I really don't see myself as an early adopter. Like, I've been following Tesla since they started 2003. I was following the developments of Tesla, and I didn't buy a Tesla till 2019 because that's okay. The cost is right, the technology is mature, it makes financial sense. And same thing with my other plugins. I didn't buy a GM EV1 or some early electric vehicle. I waited till the technology was more mature. And it made financial sense as well. A lot of people want to drive green technology before it's mature, and that can actually be counterproductive because if you have to make a big behavioral sacrifice or a big cost sacrifice, you're going to be disappointed in that decision, and you're going to talk poorly about it and actually slow down the progress potentially. So you need to keep pressure on the industry, the science to get to a point where it makes financial sense and is reliable, robust, and it works. Otherwise, you don't want to jump into it necessarily. The other big elements to being sustainable, right? You need green or sustainable consumption, which electric transportation represents. And you probably saw the motorcycle I have. So I am a motorcyclist, and I'm almost daily I'm online trying to find the Tesla of motorcycles, right? But they're not there yet. You need higher energy density and lower cost still on the batteries before you can have an electric motorcycle that really replaces a gasoline one. So I'm driving it a lot less than I used to, but and every time I fire up a gas engine, I feel guilt. I feel terrible.
Well, that's good. Hey, I mean, if it drives your personal, moral, ethical beliefs, I mean, and then you're sort of living what you're talking, right? I mean, a lot of people talk it, but it sounds like you did it. But it's not like you're some crazy guy off grid that's a kook. You're just a normal person with a family who's just doing something sustainable while also saving a ton of money. And I'll be honest, I mean, these cars are way cooler than a lot of the normal cars that roll off the line these days. So you sort of get to satisfy all the cool factor and all the fun stuff about a vehicle, but you get the sustainability and all the financial savings, which sort of a no-brainer.
Right. So
what do we have? The solar attic fan on your roof right there?
Yeah, that's my solar attic fan. So that's some of the energy efficiency measures I've done on my house. I've got solar screens. I've done some insulation and air sealing and weatherization work to try to increase the efficiency of the home. But yeah, so electric transportation is important on the consumption side, but then on the energy side, on the production generation side, you want to do renewables, right? You want to do solar, you want to do wind, whatever makes sense in your area. So yeah, the solar attic fans, all they do is that they extract hot air from the attic and make the air conditioning run less. These are pretty low cost. You can find them at Home Depot, Costco, Lowe's.
Yep.
And I have a couple of them. There's two. Yeah, they really work well. You see your second story temperatures typically drop a lot when you have those on. But the other thing I have is a solar system that's big enough to offset all the electricity used in my house and also my 3 plug-in vehicles. So my system is it's got 28 solar modules. It's a 6.4 kilowatt system. Nice. I did install it myself because I worked for a solar energy company for years. I helped start one, so I've got the resources to do it. But even though they're fairly simple, elegant systems, there is a lot of nuance to the installation, to the design of the wiring, and it's not something that typical do-it-yourselfer should really just take on themselves. The city does require a licensed electrician to pull the permit, so that's important. And the city does inspections, and El Paso Electric does inspections when it's a grid-tied system. So this system you see here, again, I picked this house because it had this is perfectly south facing. So it has an awesome, surface here and also down there to add solar. And I did start with a smaller system. I started with like a 4 kilowatt system.
Okay.
But then I expanded it to 6.4 when I added 2 extra plug-in vehicles. I only had 1 plug-in vehicle at that point.
Gotcha.
And I did the math and expanded it accordingly. But so and talking about fuel costs, right? So when I had a gasoline vehicle, I was spending about $150 to $200 a month on gasoline. When you switch to an electric vehicle for the exact same miles you're driving, let's say 1,300 miles a month,
Sure.
uh, you're gonna end up with an electric bill that's about $35 higher. So you're replacing a $150, $200 gasoline bill with a $35 electric bill.
Yep. Which you can
Uh,
also offset with solar, like you did. Yeah,
yeah,
and that's
exactly.
great. I also like that you mentioned you're doing what I'm doing. You had a solar system and then you added on, right? I started with 8 panels, then I added on, and I think I now have 27. I'm about to add 13, 14 more because I'm hopefully about to get my wife an electric vehicle. Hopefully she'll go that route if she chooses to. Um, but yeah, that's also really smart, right? You can slowly add electric vehicles to your life and slowly add solar into your life, and you don't have to do it all at once, which is sort of, I think, a good point to take away as well.
So and another interesting yeah, so my wife, that C-Max Energy, we're thinking of replacing it with a full electric vehicle. Her next vehicle will be full electric. It'll probably be a Chevy Bolt, like B as in boy, where
Okay.
you have a 240 mile range, and you're starting to see those pop up in the used market for under 20,000 now. But the C-Max Energy still has some life left in it, so we're not going to rush to do that. But that's probably going to be her replacement vehicle. And the reason I'm showing this trailer here is that a lot of people think EVs are weak or can't do some practical stuff, but this is a 2,000 pound, a 1 ton trailer that I tow with my Tesla, my Tesla Model 3, set up to
Nice.
tow. And so I tow motorcycles on it or trash or whatever. And I've had people stop me like, at a supercharger or wherever I'm stopping with the trailer, and they're like, "Is that a Tesla? Are you crazy? You're gonna ruin it. You can't be towing with a Tesla." And I said, "You absolutely can. You can actually order a Tesla with a tow hitch from the factory now,
Oh,
and
wow,
it's
that's
it's
awesome.
it,
That's a
it can tow
really good point. That's a really good point.
it can tow 2,000 pounds, with a 300-pound tongue weight. It's very capable, and it because of the low end torque and very stiff chassis that it has because of the battery and everything. It's a great towing vehicle. Like I can't even tell that there's a trailer attached to it when super stable and very capable in towing. And there's a lot of stories online of, the range drops a lot. Well, it drops a lot in a gasoline vehicle too when you tow.
Sure. Yeah.
And usually the test that they've shown where the range drops a lot, they're loading it to max capacity. Nobody tows at max capacity often. You're typically towing something smaller, well under the max capacity, and yeah, you'll see some range impact, but same thing in a gasoline vehicle.
Something
There's
in a
really
gas car. Yeah.
so
Compared to
the last
retail
thing I just want to show you
versus-
here. Yeah, the last thing I want to show you here in the back is just the solar inverter, right? So I have a central inverter, and then this is the solar meter that El Paso Electric installs that measures all the consumption from the solar array. You have a couple of disconnects for safety, depending on what system you're working on. You need some disconnects to de-energize certain portions of the system.
Sure.
In my main service panel, I have a solar breaker here, another disconnecting means. And the net meter that El Paso Electric installs, again, that if I'm producing more energy than I'm consuming, the meter's running backwards. Like right now, you can see actually, it's this arrow is going to the left.
Yep.
That means
Go
that the
backwards.
system
Yep.
it's running backwards. Yeah, I'm producing more energy than
Yeah.
I'm consuming. So my system is producing 4.6 kilowatts right now. It's not at the peak output yet, based on the time of day.
Yeah.
Also, the time of year affects it also.
Sure.
But yeah, so those two pieces of the puzzle are really what you need to help drive sustainability and to do your part, right? You need to do whatever you can on the electric transportation side, and look into getting solar. There's a lot of solar programs now where, basically the loan you get is kind of basically the same as you would be paying, an electric bill. So it makes a lot of sense to do solar. And if you live in an apartment complex or your roof is just completely unusable for solar, El Paso Electric has like the community solar program, right? So there's a way to buy into solar, and you have some savings in that program. Not as much as you would on your own personal system, but it's an option for those that don't want to take the plunge yet as well. So there's two ways to do it. And then with EVs, there's a lot of good used EVs now. I bought mine, my C-Max Energy, I bought it at CarMax locally. The Spark EV, I bought it at CarMax locally. Tesla drops off the vehicle at your house if you buy a Tesla.
Nice.
The Chevy Volt, I had to go to California to get one, but there's a lot available locally now as well. If you're looking at getting one now compared to when I bought it, so yeah, I mean that's kind of all I had to show you guys. I don't know if you have any questions, Shelby, or anything else you want me to talk about, but.
No, you clearly know what you're talking about, and I've done a lot of the same research, and I totally agree with everything you said, from the solar to the EV. And it sounds like you're a normal El Pasoan who's got a family, goes to work every day, and you can still live the same lifestyle, but probably live it more efficiently, probably save a lot of money, and in my opinion, probably drive a cooler car than the normal cars that roll off the lots. But no, I really appreciate your expertise, your time. I'll probably call you back every year to do these again. But no, Eco Paso wants to thank you again. This is part of National Drive Electric Week, which we promote every year. Hopefully, we'll partner with El Paso Electric again next year. But if anyone has any questions, you can always reach out to Eco El Paso online or over Facebook. And if you ever have a question for Tony, we could always send it his way and get you some answers. But Tony, thank you so much for your time. I know it's a Sunday. I do appreciate it. And we'll definitely talk to you again soon.
You're welcome. Thank you, Shelby.
Thank you. Take care.
You too.